Hey everybody, I hope everybody's having a good day today. Today is April 3rd, 2018, and today marks the 10-year anniversary from when my life got turned upside down, or so I thought. On April 3rd of 2008, I went into the hospital in Houston, Texas to have a procedure performed on my neck. I was told it would take an hour and a half or 2 hours, and that after this procedure I would be able to return to work in about 2 weeks. 9 hours later, I woke up and my world was turned upside down. I had had a stroke during surgery and the left side of my body was paralyzed and I couldn't swallow without getting choked. My tongue didn't work. I couldn't speak right. Everything was wrong. I woke up to this nightmare. I felt like I was in a body that wouldn't listen to my mind and wouldn't do what my mind would tell it to do. It was horrible. And today marks that anniversary. You know, for years up until that point, I'd had lots and lots of disappointments in life, heartbreaks, loss. I had, since a very early age in my life, I felt this emptiness, this loneliness inside me, and I always chased the wrong things or tried to fill that loneliness with the wrong things. I was just looking for something to give me some peace, you know. And I remember times during my life that I would call out to God and I would pray to God, and I never got an answer. You know, I felt like He wasn't there. And I remember on April 3rd of 2008 calling out to God, asking Him for help. You know, and I remember the following years after that doing the same thing, and then I remember getting angry. You know, I was trying to hold on to things in my life, and I see now that God was trying to shake me free from those things. You know, I turned back to drugs after I had the stroke. I'd struggled with drugs and alcohol abuse my whole life, in and out of rehabs. And after I had the stroke, that gave me an excuse, you know, to turn back to it. And I dove into it head first, you know, and I had legal access to all the drugs I wanted. And you know, I did. I was trying to, I just didn't want to feel anything. You know, I didn't want to feel any emotion or anything. Whenever I was young, probably 4 or 5 years old, I'd gotten choked on a cough drop and nearly died. And I'd had a phobia about choking my whole life, still do. And whenever I woke up from that stroke and I couldn't even swallow my own spit without getting choked, you can imagine my nightmare. You know, that was horrible. And so I didn't want to feel anything, any kind of fear, any kind of emotion. I just wanted to be numb. And so I did that with drugs, you know, the morphine patches, Demerol, Vicodin, Valium, Xanax, you know. And there was a lot of people in my life that were very patient with me. At the time, I thought they were being mean to me, and you know, I don't blame those people now for pushing me out of their lives. You know, because I was an out of control child. But anyway, 10 years ago today, I had that stroke, and you know, after several suicide attempts, after being in and out of several mental institutions because of those suicide attempts, I'm here today. On June 14th of 2012, I'd reached a breaking point in my life. I'd realized that I remember 2 or 3 weeks prior to June 14th, 2012, I'd been trying to get stronger drugs because the pills and things weren't doing it. I couldn't take enough pills. I couldn't smoke enough weed to take my pain away, the physical and the emotional pain. It had no effect on me. And so I began looking for stronger drugs, and with the old contacts that I had, I shouldn't have had any problem finding drugs. But everywhere I turned, I'd hear the same thing, that I don't know why I can't get that. I normally have no problem getting that, but for some reason I can't get it now. And I remember by this point in my life, I was having doubts whether or not God was really real or not, if there really was a God, But I remember thinking to myself, well, I'd also remembered I'd called out to him time and time again, and I never heard from him, But by this time, after going to about the 10th or 11th person and hearing the same story about, I can't get that for you, I started to realize something, I felt like there's something weird going on here. And it's not normal. It's like there is an outside source affecting things, keeping me from getting these drugs. And then I remember I got mad and I was thinking, this is God doing this to me. I remember even calling my mom and telling my mom, God's not letting me get any drugs. My mom probably thought I was going crazy, which I guess I was in a way. But during this time of not being able to get those stronger drugs and the other drugs not having any effect on me, it gave me time to contemplate my life and to look back at my life. And I started seeing the pattern in my life that I'd been living over and over and over again. And it would always come out the same result. But I would always try it again, thinking this time I'll get a different result. I remember there was times I would even go to, before I would go to a rehab, I would insist that it would be a rehab that would let me smoke cigarettes. I had to have my drug. I had to have things my way, all the time. It had to be my way. Well, I remember God was giving me this time, this 2 or 3 weeks, to review my life and to see that every time I tried to do things my way, I wound up in a mental institution or wound up overdosing, or something. And so then I realized nothing that I do is going to help. And I have no idea what I can do to take care of this situation, to make this situation better. I reached that point where I was like, I'm stuck. There's nothing, I'm worthless. I may as well just die. And I started figuring out, the years I'd lost due to drug and alcohol abuse and things like that. And I started thinking about how many years I might have left to live. And I started thinking about how many pills I was taking a day, how many cigarettes I was smoking a day, how many joints I was smoking a day. And I started putting that to numbers, and days in a year, and adding all these things together, and I was like, this is what my life is. This is what my life is. I can measure it, what my life is, what I'm going to be doing. And I realized there's nothing I can do. I was broken, and at that moment, whenever I was totally broke and give up and knew there was nothing I could do, I heard a literal voice. Some people say you're crazy. I heard a literal voice that come from deep within me, but I heard this voice, and it wasn't me. And it said, call out to Jesus. I remember thinking at first I'd lost my mind, or all these years of drugs and alcohol had taken its toll. But I answered, and I said, if you'll take this from me, this struggle, But I wanted to be free of these addictions. I wanted to be free of all of it. But I wanted to have it taken away from me. You know, this inner pain that I had, this loneliness that I had, all this thing that I had. And that's when I was wrapped in his love. Immediately it felt like God stepped down from heaven and gave me a hug. And it's been like that every day since. The first time in my life that loneliness was taken away, that emptiness was taken away, the desire for those drugs was gone, because the reason I desired those drugs all along in the first place was because of the loneliness and the emptiness. And for the first time in my life, I had direction. For the first time in my life, I had a real reason to live, that life was more than what we're seeing here. You know, most of us are blinded by this world and what this world has to offer. For the first time in my life, I had direction, and I had the strength inside me that didn't come from me, but it was within me. And I believe it was within me all along. But I had to go through this refiner's fire. And God turned that heat up on me on April 3rd, 2008. And on June 14th, 2012, he took me up out of that purification fire to see if I was ready. And I was. Because I give up on myself and had nothing else to do. I said, what do you want with me? And that's when I heard his voice. All those years I'd called out to God and I never got an answer. He was there, he was hearing me, but he was letting that fire do its work on me. God didn't take away all the physical problems from me. I hear atheists tell me that all the time, say your God's powerless. I didn't ask God to take that away from me. I asked God to take away my addictions and that loneliness. And if he would just do that, I would find a way to overcome the physical problems. Half my tongue's still totally paralyzed. Half my vocal cords are still paralyzed. I still have problems lifting anything from my shoulders up. I still get spasms in my arm and in my leg that sometimes they just take over and control themselves. But I still get choked on food. I have to have very soft food or blend my food so I don't get choked. And I get aspiration pneumonia a lot. I have to be very careful. But God give me this new spirit, this new heart. It says, just because I have these things in my life doesn't mean I can't overcome, doesn't mean I can't be effective or of some value in this world. See, I didn't think I had value anymore. So I like to use my life to show others out there who's had brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, or drug addicts, whatever, what kind of problem, you know, that you got to reach that point in your life where you got to stop trying to do it on your own. And that's when God will start doing his work inside you. Look at me today. You know, I'm in the Philippines. I've got a ministry here, independent, not connected with anybody. Feeding children, clothing children. You know, it's amazing, this life, what God has given me. And I've learned I have to wait. I have to be patient. I have to wait for him to show me things. But there is a way. It's like there's a code in here that if I'll wait, he'll show me where to go. He'll show me what to do. Now, there's been times where I've went ahead of him and I've messed up. You know, I got impatient. But I've noticed that if I'll just wait on everything on God, he will show me that perfect timing to go and do everything. It's amazing. I have an amazing, wonderful life now. I have had some amazing people in my life that never give up on me. My mother is one of them. My children are another. But praise be to God, our Savior, our Lord, Jesus Christ, who never give up on me. And today gives me the strength that I have. I hope I inspired you all. Love you all. God bless.